Thanks very much for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, just want to give a big thanks to Sharon and the team for setting up this platform and also providing this wonderful opportunity to share our stories to the juniors, and hopefully things could be insightful. So my name is Cedric, and I have attended this very school from 2011 to early 2013, after which I went to the US for the next 10 years, where I completed the second half of my high school, a bachelor degree of science in biochemistry at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences at University of Illinois Chicago. I returned afterwards in 2023, and currently I'm a toxicologist, and my job is to assess toxicity and safety of investigational new drugs before they go into clinical trials. So unlike most TED Talks that will focus on stories of successes and how to be successful, my talk today is going to focus on the counterpart, the hardships, difficulties, and challenging times that I faced during my PhD. So first off, I did graduate, otherwise I wouldn't be here giving this speech, but I did it in a rather painful, suffering, and very, very atypical way. So I like to set up the baseline about myself before I go into the story, so you know the issues that I have faced were largely not due to my personal incapabilities. So first of all, I'm intellectually competent, and second of all, I'm very willing to work very, very hard. So I start to sound like a show off, but I'm a scientist by training, and I like to support all my statements with evidence. So in high school, I did 11 AP exams, mostly self-taught, and I completed a 4-year college degree in only 2 years. When I graduated, I was only 20, and at that time, I thought nothing could be hard for me. Everything will be easy until PhD happened. So in the US, PhD is normally a 5-year program with the first year or a year and a half that you do a rotation in 2 to 3 different labs before you choose one of them as your PhD thesis advisor, which is absolutely the most important thing for your PhD, because some advisors like to micromanagement and some like to free range. The unmatching teaching styles are going to make you suffer a lot, since this thesis advisor is the person you will talk to, collaborate with, and work for the remaining of the next 5 years. And they have absolute power over whether you can graduate or not. And unfortunately, that's just how the system is. So in the field of biomedical research, the metrics for selecting a good PhD advisor includes the following. First, they have a good publication record, and second, they have sufficient funding, and lastly, they should be very, very supportive. The department I joined was relatively small, and I didn't have many options, but luckily I was able to find an advisor who has sufficient funding, a good publication record, and he's very, very nice. Last but not least, he's Chinese, so Chinese don't cheat on Chinese, I guess. So at the time, I thought everything is going to be easy again for me, like it had always been, until it didn't. So by the end of my second year, I passed my qualifying exam, which is the exam that can get you kicked out of the program if you don't pass. But my projects didn't go very well. So I had a lot of experiments, a lot of them didn't work, and some of them, the results were not statistically significant enough to make the project worth keep going. So I consulted my advisor, and he comforted me with words but didn't give actual advices, and that's the first time I had the thought of switching a lab. So I talked to a couple peers, and my PI, of course, they all talked about the opportunity cost being so high because they are already here for 2 years. And they also talked about maybe it's me not working very hard enough. So I was convinced, and I stayed for another year. So into the third year, I worked harder than ever. I did more experiments, I did more literature readings and more experimenting, more exploring of the field. I became apparently more mature in the field of biomedical research. But again, my project didn't go far, and the PI was very disappointed and accused me of not working hard enough. Again, I had this thought of switching to a different lab, and I realized that my PI at the time was not willing to give me actual advices, or how I should develop my project. And again, I talked to peers and friends. They brought up the opportunity cost, and maybe it's me not working hard enough. And if your PI lets you graduate, why would you care about having a project to publication or not? So I listened to them again. I was convinced maybe it's just me not working hard enough. So third year into the PhD program, I still did not have a solid project that can develop into a thesis, and I became very, very anxious. During the fourth year, I worked harder than ever again, and the pandemic happened. Before the pandemic, the advisor comes to the lab once a week, because even though we are located in Chicago, he actually lived with his wife in California. It was sort of the only chance to talk to him, as he only replies to sections of your email, and that makes communication really, really hard. And afterwards, after the pandemic, he never stepped into the lab, and communication was harder than ever, and again, he became less responsive and making it harder to push the projects forward, since he's the one that have to prove making purchase orders and what experiment to perform. But I stayed working hard because I'm only 1 year away from graduation. And it was after lab meeting, I make up my mind to leave the lab, after I presented an immunofluorescence staining image, which was called out as not real signal because the advisor thought it's not real. But I had positive controls and negative controls, and I know that's real signal. And I realized that he was not capable of teaching or advancing the research, despite the fact that he was a decent scientist and researcher. That's by the end of my fourth year, I'm only 1 year away from graduation or being postponed for graduation, and still no solid projects for a thesis, and the advisor was very sick, disappointed in me, and myself was very, very desperate. This time, I didn't talk to anyone. I went home, drank half a bottle of whiskey, and after I woke up, I called my advisor and told him I wanted to switch a lab. He asked me, "Are you sure? Anything I could do to change your mind?" I said, "No, I'm very determined." So in the next week, I emailed roughly 30 advisors from different departments under the College of Pharmacy and interviewed with 4 of them. I informed them of my situation and told them I want to graduate in 2 years, and I promised I'd be working hard. Next thing I know, in 2 years, I joined one of the labs and graduated in 2 years and published very well. So currently I have 7 publications, a total impact factor score over 50. So in retrospect of the journey of the failure success mixture of my PhD, I've learned a couple lessons. First, I had more than just my PI to pick as my advisor. I could have talked to the dean and looked for other more suitable options like I did when I looked for my second advisor. So studying under different departments was actually allowed and encouraged. So there are always more options than you think you have. You think you have to go to graduate school, you think you have to find a job right after graduation. Not always the case. You can always have gap years. You can always switch to a different bachelor degree and start over, long as it fits your goal. Second of all, the sort of standard metrics for evaluating something might not be very, very solid. For example, another matrix for not selecting an advisor includes first, Asian, second, female, and thirdly, it's an assistant professor. That fits exactly into my second advisor, who's very supportive. I say graduating in 2 years is a mission impossible that was made possible by her. So there are a lot of times people are going to tell you there are standardized metrics for evaluating something. It's not always true. You can always judge it by yourself, and you can make better judgments by yourself. And thirdly, this is one of the classical doctrines that people would teach you, and that my experience fit this one perfectly. So don't be afraid to go against authorities. So many times when I had a thought that conflicted with what my advisor told me, I stick to my own thought. The studies, experimental design, the cellular mechanism to explore, the subfield to target, many times my thoughts was told by my advisor that it would not work, despite that she had a good record of publication and research. I stick to my own thoughts. I listened to myself and proved it later that it worked, and it opened a new field for the lab to continue to pursue. Last but not least, I did not rely on others. I leave this one rather for open interpretation. By that, I do not mean do not collaborating with others or collaboration is not important, but I need to judge at the time whether you are collaborating with someone trustworthy or at least someone who can really contribute as a collaborator. At the end of my thesis project, we were about to publish for a very, very decent paper, and we had a new postdoc joining the team. The plan was to have him help me so he could get co-first authored. On that paper, he joined my project and I gave him an animal experiment that would require 2 months to complete, along which samples and data needs to be collected. So he is a postdoc, and I did trust him at the very beginning till he missed a couple sample collection time points that could have resulted in a redo of the whole study. And that would have resulted me graduating 3 months later and redo of the whole experiment, for which at the time I don't have that luxury. So I guess my talk don't really have a center theme, but I like to share the path that I took, a hard, tough, not so easy or a cheating one that could enlighten some of you. So if you ever face a difficult situation where things aren't going as planned, whether it's with schoolwork or life, know that you always have other options. You are more capable than you think. It's okay to take risks, change directions, and trust yourself to overcome these hurdles. Hope one day when you encounter these hardships, you could know that you have better options and you could deal with it. Thank you.